So if you haven't been following all along and you just tuned into this video, I'm doing a refresh of a 1976 Corvette, and I'm calling it a refresh because I am not putting it back to stock as it came out of the showroom. Have no desire to, and really this series of Corvettes, the C3, is relatively common, so having one in pristine factory condition really doesn't make it very valuable like it would with some of the other models of Corvette that are more rare. But I have started to prepare to take the body off the frame so that I can do all the de-rusting there, and I've so far taken off the front bumper and a air tank that, I should say vacuum tank that provides vacuum for the the headlights, so that you can still operate the headlights after you shut the engine off. Now I'm going after this rocker panel cover because there's a panel under here that I need to take off so that I can get to the bolts that hold the body on. And this looks like it might be a little bit tough here. These are Phillips head screws. So I've got my Phillips head screwdriver, and the first one I tried is not being very cooperative, so I may have to drill some of them out. That one's coming out easily. But there are 6 of these screws, and I won't show you everything, but for instance, the one on the front that seems to be a little bit rusted on, the first thing I'm going to do is spray it with some PB Blaster. I bought the bulk thing and it came with a spray gun, or a pump sprayer. I'm going to spray that. Hopefully that will be enough to loosen it. And I will loosen all those bolts and take that panel off. Instead of taking up all your time watching me unscrew screws, which isn't very exciting, I'll shut the video off for now and come back whenever I have something more interesting. Okay, I've found 2 things so far. One is that the 2 end fasteners are a screw with a nut on behind it. It's kind of difficult to get into the one in the back. I used a 3/8 inch offset box wrench to get in behind there, and I can hold it, but the rust on the screw is such that I can only turn it maybe 1/8 of a turn, if that, before it binds up and everything. So I am just going to take and drill the center of that out and get new screws and nuts to replace that with. So then I moved on to the second one, which I suspect is just a sheet metal screw going in here, and I can't turn that either. And I can feel the in back of it, and there is no nut there. But very hard to get any blaster behind it. Well, maybe I could do that. This one appears to be broken off, or it's a shorter screw. This one has a nut on it, so I may end up drilling out more than one of these. But the first thing I'm going to try is this impact driver to try and loosen the ones that are sheet metal screws.
And I don't know if you can read it on here, but let's turn it the right way so that you can read it. It says R over here and L over here, so right and left. Right now it's set on left, because I want to turn it to the left. The way you change that is you press down on it and move it over to the way you want it to go. You insert the bit into the screw and you strike it with a hammer. We're going to see if that will work to loosen it. If it doesn't, then we're going to be probably drilling out all of these screws and replacing them all. Doing anything. I was hoping that maybe even just wrapping on that with the hammer would jar some of the rust loose where that's screwed into. Doesn't appear that that's going to work, so I'm going to work on that a little bit more, and I'll let you know how it works out. Okay, I've been working on this screw just a little bit. I'm trying to focus in on the threads, or the, I should say the screw head. And if you notice that it's pointing to maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock. Interesting thing here, wasn't making any progress, and sometimes you can dislodge a screw or a bolt by turning it to tighten first, just to break the hold on it. And so I tried that, and it seemed to be turning the screw in the manner to tighten it. I'm sorry, to loosen it. So in other words, this right and left on this thing might be backwards, because it's a cheap foreign produced, I don't know where, tool, and would appear when I have this on R, which I would, since it's R and L, I would assume that that means right and left. But it appears as though when I have this set on R and I strike it, it moves it to the left. I think you can see that that moves just a little bit further towards the left. So I guess it's a good idea to check which way your tool is working. Maybe that's why I always have problems with this. It definitely is moving a little bit. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a long time if I'm able to unscrew those, and I guess I'd rather try to do that. And boy, oh, there it is. Now it's definitely a little bit more towards the 10 o'clock position than 11. So it moved it just a little bit, but I'd rather not drill them out if I can avoid it, because I don't know what I'd be getting into on the other side. But this definitely is moving it a little bit now. So I will work at that, working it back and forth and alternately using the impact driver and see what I can do. But looks like this again is going to be another long involved process that you don't need to see every single minute of. I'll check back later. So I've started to drill off the head of the screw back here that has the nut. So I'm holding it in the back with the offset wrench, trying to drill just enough to get the head off of it. I don't know how big of a drill bit I'm going to have to go to, because I haven't taken any of the screws out successfully. So ideally you want something, a drill bit, as thick as the shaft of the bolt, so that whenever you get through that far, the head will just pop off and will no longer be holding the rocker pin cover on. So that's going to be the idea. I may have to switch to a slightly larger drill bit to get that head off. So I've got the first one out relatively quickly, but here's what you're trying to do. There's the head of the screw on my drill bit, and as soon as that separated the bit from the nut and bolt on the back side, it just popped out. Guess you got to be careful when you're doing that, because I was afraid I had broken my drill bit when it popped through suddenly, but looks like that's what we're going to have to do on probably most of these. I'm going to try to get them out with the screwdriver, but I'm kind of doubtful that I'm going to be successful. So I did manage to get one of them out by beating on it with that impact driver until it moved, and then tightening it back in and out and in and out. Probably going to end up replacing all these anyways, because by the time you're done with that, the head on it is a little bit beat up, and might as well start with new ones. But it's going to be a slow process either way, whether I decide to work on it. Actually, what I found is that the front two and the back one have nuts on the back of them. The three in the middle, which this is one of them, from over here. So those three screw into something in the back there. And basically my process on this was, when you use this impact driver, you kind of twist it towards the way you want it to go and beat on it a little bit. turn it back the other direction to clear any crud out of the threads. Turn it back to where you can't tighten it with the screwdriver anymore. Beat on it with the impact driver again. Again, put pressure on it in the way you want it to go. And eventually it comes loose. The one nice thing about the impact driver is you're using it, you're putting a lot of pressure when you strike it inward on that screw. And it's less likely to screw up the screwdriver slot in the head of the thing. So I've got two of those out. I'll do the third one of those, and then I'll work on the two front ones and see what I can accomplish there. Okay, that third one is loosened. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. I'm going to leave that one in place. I can turn it by hand now. And I'm going to leave it in place so that that rocker panel doesn't drop while I go forward and work on the two that are up there. So I was trying to use a line wrench. Oops, gotta back that off. To get in there to hold that and try to turn it with the screwdriver somehow. And it's too fat to get in there, so I'm going to try a cheaper foreign imitation that is thinner and might be able to get in there, but not optimistic. I'm really, at this point, because I don't have any help, I can't have somebody hold that for me. I was trying to wedge the line wrench in under the fender and then still use the impact driver to get that second one off. But after the first impact, it fell, and I don't believe it was on the nut anyway. So probably in truth, I'm trying to look for something I can hold it from spinning while I drill off the head. Well, it's almost a miracle, but I did get that second one off. I was able to use an open-end wrench, 3/8, and hold that nut from the back. And I actually used the impact driver as a screwdriver without hitting it. And I was able to get it off. Now, I've had some blaster soaking on that front one for a little bit. So I'm going to go see how that goes. I drilled the final one out by using the same technique I did over here. I held it behind with a wrench and put the drill on it. About as good as you can do when you're a one-man show. Finish removing this final screw here, and the trim panel will come off. So that's an aluminum panel, and I'm glad that I didn't have to drill out these other three that came out by themselves. I'm going to try to do a close-up on what's in there. And if I'd had to drill the head off, I'd be stuck with a stud sticking out of that. At least I'd be able to get some blaster on it and maybe get vice grips on it and take it out, but it's better if you can get them out the way they're supposed to come out. So now on to the front where we started to, that's the whole purpose of taking this panel off. See if I can get the camera we're going after the panel that's underneath the wheel well that hides a motor or a body mount that's here, up under here. So it looks like these are 1/2-inch bolts. There's 2 underneath, 2 here. Get those out quickly, as if anything on this project has been quick. Again, I'm doing this by hand in favor of the power tools because I want to be able to feel if that thing's binding up with rust, so that I can go the other direction and clear some of the rust out of the threads. Okay. For a minute there, I thought that there was a nut on the back side, and it's basically a nut that's attached to the panel when you're moving. I thought it was spinning, but it wasn't. Gloves sometimes can be a little bit difficult to work with, but then again, they save your hand considerably from a lot of mixing cuts. Share of those will work in my cars over the years. These would have all come off with a power wrench with no problem, but better to be safe than sorry. Okay, those wheel wells are out. And this little metal panel just drops out of there. So again, another piece that I'll be getting the rust off and painting, make it last another 40 years. So I think I'm going to save the actual body mount bolt till when I'm ready to take the body off. But it should be visible up in here. It is, but it looks like maybe there's some pieces of the air conditioning unit that might actually be in the way of that a little bit. Oh no, I was looking too far forward. It's right here. if it weren't for the fact that you kind of have to take this panel off to get to that bolt, you'd probably leave the rocker panel on, although it would risk some damage as you're lifting the body, because what I do is I put hooks under the lip there. I put hooks under the lip here, and that wouldn't work well with that aluminum rocker panel cover because it's too flimsy to support the weight of the body. So I'm not going to film any of it, but I'm going to go through the other side, doing the same process there. If I find anything that is unique, or if I can show a tip or something like that, I'll add to this video. But other than that, this is probably a good breaking point for this video, because then I can separate them into logical clips. This one will be removing the rocker panel and under fender cover, and then I'll go on to another video to disconnect a lot of the stuff underneath the car. Have a nice day. I forgot to mention to people who are just joining my habit of putting the bolts back where they came from. Makes it so much easier when you go to put it back together. This went in like that. So you're never searching for bolts. You know where they came from. You never lose them. Just a good practice to get into. Bye now. Okay, I'm back for a report on the driver's side. Apparently somebody's been in this rocker panel area before, because when I got to these, the heads on these were pretty messed up and pretty much made the impact driver useless. So I had to drill them out, and I'll be attempting to remove those with a pair of vice grips. But the other thing that I noticed, and I checked it with the other side, this is the back place where the screw and nut were on. There's kind of a rectangular opening in this part of the body, and then a little smaller rectangular opening on the back side of the body. And they had a nut on it that had a built-in washer. Thought I had it over here. Maybe I didn't bring it over with me. At any rate, it held it on. But now if you look through the front hole, and this is why I'm thinking there's been somebody in here before. Look at that hole where the bolt is supposed to hold it on. Much bigger, more oval shaped than I found the nut that was on the back end. Okay, so I think somebody's been in here before. But here's the nut that was on the back end, so it had enough of this flange on it to hold the rocker panel trim on. This is what was in the front, a little spacer, if you will. Looks like it's homemade. Isn't even the same type of screw, because it has a flathead screw slot on it instead of a Phillips. But that was what was in there. So somehow I'm going to have to rig up something that's a little better than that, probably a fender washer in the back, and just screw it through that. Because this didn't even take up all the space between the trim and that tab on the bottom of the fender. The other thing I noticed is both of those rocker panels had paint on the front end of them at the top. It looked like that maybe this car has been repainted up to here, because on the top of the rocker panel where it fit here, there was, looked like overspray. Why a good body man would leave that on and have overspray on it, just mask it off, I don't know, but that apparently is what was done. So I'm going to take that under fender panel off and let the blaster that I've put on these three studs that are left soak in for a while, and hopefully they'll come out with a pair of vice grips. If that doesn't work, plan B is to wait until I've got it off of the frame. Then I'll be able to reach the other side of it, and I should be able to either get vice grips on it there, or worst case, as long as I don't screw up these studs too bad, as I can slip a nut over here and weld it on, and then just use a wrench to take it off. Generally speaking, when you do that, it heats up the screw enough to break all the rust bonds, and it comes out pretty easily. And I should be able to do that without doing any damage to the body, because the body's fiberglass and it shouldn't be affected by that amount of heat with a little wire welder. So that's where I'm going from here. Okay, I got a close-up of one of the studs I'm trying to remove. Trying to grab these with a vice grip, and it's got to be a good tight grip on it, so you should have to exert an amount of effort to close those vice grips. Uh-oh. Didn't want that to happen. It broke off. The trouble with the tiny bolts, I can't tell whether it's turning at that point or whether it was failing. And in that case, it was failing. I'm probably going to have to drill that out somehow and then retap that. I guess it's almost like a threaded pop rivet in there, because I do have 1/4-inch threaded pop rivet inserts that you can put in for something like this. I don't believe I have this size, which I believe is 3/16, but I'm sure they're available. So I might have to remove that whole thing and put a brand new one in. Not making my day good. So long again. I've determined the way I'm going to approach this. I'm going to wait till I get the body off, and I'm going to go under here, and hopefully you'll be able to see it, but there is enough of the bolt sticking through, if I can find the darn thing. I can see it with my naked eye, but I can't pick it up on the video here. There it is. There's enough of that bolt sticking through
so that when I get the body off, I can put a nut on it, then weld the nut to it, and just loosen it from that end, and it'll pull it right through the threaded area that it's rusted into. And as I said before, the heat from that will break the rust bond, and they tend to come right out when you can do that. So that will be a job for another day, but at least I have what I consider a good plan.